my retirement plan prior to the motorcycle accident was beach. I Beach is my favorite version of playing Ultimate, especially 5v5. There's a version of 4v4. I think it's probably I don't enjoy that as much as I might enjoy 7-on-7 grass. It's weird how the little tiers might be created if I were to create a true
Is
hierarchy.
4v4 a thing for Beach Ultimate? I mean, I know
It
they had a
is.
showcase game which we could talk about, but that what does that typically play, or is it just 5-on-5?
It's a split out there. So Layout is a very popular beach tournament held near and around LA. I think for the last few years it's been held in Huntington Beach. And they've gradually been shifting more and more of the divisions to 4v4. So the
I did
last,
not know that.
I think this past year might have been the first time that the top division, which is just the most competitive division, was moved from 5v5 to 4v4 as well. So yeah,
Huh.
that's definitely a version. There's some, talk about 4v4 having a shot at being in the Olympics. Who knows? I think it's an inferior version because the disc, when it advances to the cutter level, there's typically only like one more person to continue the downfield motion in that moment if a big gainer's been acquired. And so it feels a lot more like start, stop type of ultimate. And I think that's less fun to watch and it's less fun to play. But 5v5 is a sweet spot. Yeah, it's my favorite. No joints hurt. I didn't initially like beach as much as I liked grass because all my strengths probably were best shown on grass. I was a pretty fast athlete. I could jump really high, and I liked throwing really far if possible. And the beach playing field is a little smaller than grass, and I'm not all that tall, and I'm pretty heavy for an ultimate player. For those of you who don't know, I'm 6 foot, about 195 pounds, 200 pounds. So for some of you, that may seem tall, but
And maybe
if
the average Ultimate player, men's Ultimate player is 170 ish, right?
right, 170
I
and
mean,
probably 2 inches taller than me.
right.
Yeah. So those physical aspects did not, intrinsically make me a good beach player, but I really liked how hard you had to try because of the things we talked about, how it just like felt harder. And then I also eventually learned how to run on sand, which the mechanics of it can be a little bit different than on grass. And so if you're someone who's got a lot of bounce, it may not translate well to sand. It might if you're lightweight, but if you're not, then you're going to have to create the forces in a different way. And eventually I learned how to jump really well on sand, and that ends up feeling extremely rewarding because sometimes you put a foot into the sand and you just get gobbled up by the sand monster and you feel like you go down instead of up. And then other times,
I know
you
that feeling.
stick
It's
it
not fun. Yeah.
and you go up. Yeah.
'Cause on
Um,
grass, you can time it perfectly because you know where the ground is going to be. That muscle memory is the same every time because the ground is level. In sand, you're looking up at the disc and you go to jump and you're like, wait, it was this much different. It was a head difference of where my foot went, where I thought it was going to go.
exactly. Yeah. You extend that hip and that knee and you're just barely finding any sand at all. And you're like, well, didn't nail that one.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I think the more that I played beach and realized how different it can be played than grass, the more I began to appreciate it. Something that I try to communicate with the team that you were on is like an interesting element that causes the game to be different between grass and beach is that the frisbee in relationship to the humans moves way faster on beach because the humans are moving way slower, and yet the frisbee can travel the same speed. And so this changes a lot of the throwing angles, the receiving angles, the way that defense needs to be played, the way that offense needs to be played. And I don't think beach has been completely discovered in terms of the best way to play offense on beach and the best way to play defense on beach. I feel like it's still in its earlier stages of development, and people are going to find a bunch of ways that work, and people are going to find a bunch of ways that don't work, and it's going to take a little time to get to the same level of refinement that you see in the grass game, which is still, kind of an early sport, and innovation is still taking place there. And I think that's another compelling reason for beach, and one thing that makes it interesting intrinsically.
One of the things that I love about, I mean, beach is fun. I mean, it's taxing certainly, but laying out, being in the sun, being on the water. I mean, I live in San Diego now, not too far from you, and I've always loved the beach. So there's just something about the environment that is so fun.
No
Um,
cleats.
no cleats. There's less equipment involved, tying shoes, tying cleat, whatever it is. Your feet don't hurt. They hurt in a little bit different way, but so there's benefits certainly, and I hear you on those. In After the experience, I would say though that I still think to me, grass is more fun, and the reason why is the speed of the game is faster to me. Both the decision making, the speed of the athletes moving on the field, what like physically possible moving is faster. The cutting is faster. The juking, and being able to juke, your kind of defender is much more possible, and you can kind of like shake people out of their shoes. It's so much harder to do that in beach. I think like the hucks, going full, you can get up to full speed. And I just think there's a beauty of the game that grass has that I didn't see or feel when I was out there. Like in beach, it almost seemed a little like sloppy is the wrong word, but you can kind of throw junky stuff just to kind of like get it past somebody or flip it out, a little break here or there. And I, I'm not sure if I'm explaining that the best, but it just, maybe the best way to put it is, or an example was when I watched USA Ultimate Nationals. I was sitting right there in the end zone, New York versus Revolver, San Francisco. And it was a great game. It was 15-13, but both offenses were pretty stingy with the disc, and just, there wasn't a lot of fans yet because there was other games. And it was just like the offense is slowly figuring out how to penetrate the defense, moving it from side to side, players sprinting across, moving at full speed. And so I think the breaks, the throws, the pivoting, I think is something that you don't think about. Like it's just much more fluid and beautiful that I think the sand is it. I don't even know if this might be a hot take, but should it be called Ultimate Frisbee? I think you could certainly say that, but it is a different game in the sense of, there could be players great at grass that may not be as good on beach or vice versa, So, anyways, I just think the beauty and the speed of the game of Ultimate is a lot higher than beach. And that's why I personally enjoy grass better.
There's still time for you to come around. I think your arguments are good ones. Again, I initially did not favor beach because it kind of stole some of my superpowers away. I liked being able to just stab the ground and go, but I had to learn a different skill set, and I had to learn how to add a new lens for my cutting or my defending. And so it was a bit of an intellectual exercise and relearning the game. I had to learn to box people out for receiving or defending high balls instead of just jumping over them and roofing them, right? I think all of these little things added to my grass game. Actually, they were kind of complementary. And there is a truth in beach that we haven't mentioned, where if your receiver has one full step under or sometimes away, they're open. And it's just, can the thrower throw an accurate enough pass? Because unless the defender is just way faster or carrying
Mm-hmm.
way more momentum than
Mm-hmm.
the receiver is, they just can't make the play. It's too difficult to gain acceleration steps on sand, those last two steps, and get like a big layout block, which also is something that's fun to do on sand, is to lay out and not really suffering pain for it. Um,
Very true.
but at the highest levels of beach, which WBUCC was not the highest level. It was very high. I think it was very high level competition. But if you want to see the highest levels, I do think it's WBUC. Whenever a country sends their best players to go compete, especially because the rosters are small. You're talking about maybe 18 people being sent from a country. A lot of the countries can send 18 good players. They struggle to send 25, 27 to these grass tournaments. And it's the same reason why you would see world games be really competitive. It's like, not only is it only the top like 5 or 6 teams from the whole world, but each of those teams can send 13 or 14 excellent players. And then you just like don't know what's going to happen. All the play happens in the margins. And so, whenever you're playing the top level, you see very few turnovers. And in beach, it's a possession game, just like the grass game is, but I would say amped up just a little bit more. It's very easy to lose if you're loose with the disc, and if you're trying to be the Rhino of 2024, where you're playing the deep ball, and you miss one or two of those shots, it's likely that you lose the game. It's not often that you get the disc back. So that's another element of the game. I just like the heightened stakes. And I'm sure you felt that on grass. And I know you got a taste of that at WBCC. Our final was electrifying. Every turnover felt like it was a huge momentum swing, not just because there were fans in the stand and a championship in the line, but those things did raise the stakes. But it just felt like it was going to be a tight game, and every turnover seemed to matter.